crafting journey here. That journey took over on Instagram. This is the show, Crafting and Crime Daily, where I describe recaps of live trials. But you're also going to hear about my crafting adventures. And I do apologize yesterday. No live. Not feeling well. Still not, 100%. Have just a cold. It's just a cold. I'm going to live. Nothing major. So what I did on over the weekend, and I had hoped to have this done by the live yesterday, but I just literally laid in bed all day yesterday, so I did not finish this. But I printed out the pattern for January, February, and March of the gnome stitch crochet along. And what I would do is I would just mark off the rows as I go. Now, some of the rows I'd already completed. So here's where I've been marking off. You can't see anyway. Anyway, marking off the rows as I go. So I was actually on the decrease this thing. Let me show you where I'm at. And, oh my God. First of all, let me just say, this is a Afghan. It's a gnome stitch along from 2022. If you're interested in this, I can direct you to the pattern, but I've never done this before, and I just found it to be so enjoyable. I was really having fun with this. Now, I'm learning some things that I'm going to do next time. I'm going to go with smaller bobbins. Yeah, I know that's real. Yeah, more like this rather than this. But I just didn't know how this would go. So for the February one, I'll go smaller. Now, what you're seeing up here is the snowflake coming together, but there's the gnome. And yes, it's a big square, but I'm doing a double crochet. You can do a half double crochet and it'll be a little smaller, the square, but I am just having so much fun with it. So I just have this corner to go here, and then I'll be done. I don't know that that will even get done today because, again, still not feeling 100%. But I didn't want you to miss a single day of the Alex Murdaugh trial. No. Yeah, my voice goes up an octave when I talk about that. Let me grab my coffee so I can speak clearly. Friday was another super interesting day at the trial of Alex Murdaugh. Now, they're still doing the in-camera. They're splitting the day where they're doing some in-camera. I think they're doing mornings in-camera, which is a hearing to hear the financial witnesses, so the judge can make a ruling at some point in the future about whether this financial information is going to come into the criminal case to show motive and state of mind of this defendant at the time that he allegedly murdered his son, Paul Murdaugh, who was 22, and his wife, Maggie, who was in her 50s. It's very tragic, very tragic. So these are notes that I took on Friday and Saturday, so I'm going to rely heavily on them today because, my brain is a fog. All right, I'm going to put down the coffee. Oh, that's delicious. I can't even really taste it, but it just feels good on my throat. Okay, so on Friday, one of the financial witnesses was the current president of Palmetto State Bank. Now, he took over in August, sometime around late 2021, when it was discovered that Russell Lafitte, the then president of Palmetto State Bank, was in cahoots with Alex Murdaugh, and he was making all these loans to Alex Murdaugh and diverting them for his personal use and Alex's personal use. And this had been going on since like 2011. Yep. Maybe actually back to 2008. 2011 is when Alex started doing the fake forge account things at the Bank of America, but this was Palmetto State Bank. So he had a lot of accounts set up, Alex did, at Palmetto State Bank. Now, Russell Lafitte has had federal charges, and he has already gone to trial. That was in November of last year, and found guilty of wire fraud and bank fraud based on some of the stuff I'm going to tell you about today. So there was a memo to the executive committee of Palmetto State Bank that said there was $4.2 million owed by Alec Murdaugh. So they're like, whoa. So they had this board meeting on August 17th to discuss these loans to Alec Murdaugh. And at the time, the explanation was, it's okay because Alec intends to sell his farm. Now, he refers to their Moselle property, the 1,700 acre property, as the farm. And that it was his intention at that time to sell that property to make up for these loans, apparently. His total liability in loans they discussed at this meeting was $3,544,897. And that did not include additional loans that had already been charged off by the bank. Now, this president went on to explain that the charged off loans are charged off the bank's books as bad loans, but the person, Alex Murdaugh, is still responsible for paying those loans. And every now and then he would make a payment on those loans. So they said, yeah, he's still required to pay for those loans. And some of those were collateralized by real property. In other words, he would get the loan and he would put up some of his, either his Edisto property or the Moselle property as collateral. The problem with that is he did not own them. The real property was in his wife's name, Maggie Murdaugh, probably to protect those assets from, the boat case, from anybody else getting that property in another matter. So they saw that in July, $350,000 had been sent to Chris Wilson on behalf of Erlock. I can't talk. $350,000 had been sent to Chris Wilson. Now that's the attorney, that he handled this case with. It was called the Ferris case, and that, as you'll recall, that case, the legal fees was $782,000 to Alex's firm. It was supposed to go to Alex's firm on behalf of Alex. That's what he earned in that case. Well, you're going to find out later on what happened to that money, but now Chris is hounding him. I need this money back. So Russell Lafitte approved a loan of $350,000 that Palmetto State Bank paid to Chris Wilson for this Ferris case to cover that, at least one of the checks, because there were 3 different checks for that $782,000. There was a $192,000 check. That was the settlement or his fee on behalf of the wife's case for loss of consortium. Then there were 2 checks, $375,000 and $225,000, which added up to $600,000, which was Alex's fee for the husband's case, who was the actual injured party. So a lot of these loans to Alex were collateralized by property that had been already collateralized in other loans. So they were multi-collateralized, which I don't think you can really do. Oh, and by the way, that $350,000 that Russell Lafitte approved to pay to Chris Wilson, they could not find any loan documents to support that money transfer. No loan documents. Yeah. Now the charged off loans, this guy went through them: $104,000, $806,000, $195,000, $999,654.94. That was a $1 million line of credit given to Alex, charged off $91,368.90. So for a total of over $2 million in charged off loans. Yeah, crazy coffee. I'm gonna get through this thing. I really will. Okay, so then the next person on the stand was Michael Satterfield. Now, we're still on the in-camera hearing. The jury's not hearing anything of what we're talking about right now. Not yet. By the way, this is really stretching this case out. They're taking, what was supposed to be a 3-week trial is now going to be like a 6 or 8-week trial, because the judge is having to hear all of this testimony ahead of time to make a ruling about whether the jury can hear this testimony. And if all this testimony comes in, this case is going to last a while. So Michael Satterfield is the son of Gloria Satterfield. Gloria Satterfield was the housekeeper / nanny at the Moselle property for the Murdaughs for many, many years. Alex paid her $10 an hour. $10 an hour. So there was a day back in February of 2018 where she fell on the front porch steps. Now, allegedly, the dogs swept her out from under her feet. Now, those words never came out of her mouth. She suffered a head injury. Nobody's really sure what happened to her. She's found by Paul and Maggie. They call 911. She's taken to the hospital. She dies 3 weeks later. At the funeral, Alex approaches the boys, Michael and his brother, and he says, listen, I want you to sue me for negligence because my dog swept your mother's feet out from under her and this caused her head injury and caused her to die. And I'm just going to admit liability. And here's a friend of mine that will represent you. Now, Michael is, how should I say? I want to put this nicely. Not the sharpest tack in the jar. Yeah. And it was his impression that Alex was his lawyer. He thought Alex was his lawyer, and this other guy was just kind of helping out. But he does acknowledge that Alex said, no, I have a conflict. I really can't represent you. And he knew that the other guy was his lawyer too. But what happens is Alex, so he goes to, they sign up with the other lawyer. They sue Alex for negligence. Alex convinces the insurance company, I'm going to admit liability. I just need you to pay this claim. It was settled for $4+ million. But the boys are never told about the settlement. Michael testified that he learned about the settlement in the media. He's watching media. He didn't say what news outlet, and he learns that his mother's case has been settled. So he calls up his lawyer, Alex, and he's like, what's going on with my mother's case? And Alex tells him, he says, I saw in the news that it was settled. And he's like, no, but we're hoping to get it settled by the end of the year. Now, keep in mind, it's already been settled. We're hoping to get it settled by the end of the year. So, and that was in June of 2021. Now, what happens in June of 2021? This is when all hell's breaking loose, right? What are you doing? This is when the murders are occurring, right? So, at this point, there were 2 settlements. And Michael only knew about one policy. He thought that they were going after the insurance company. Alex had a $500,000 policy, so they were going after this $500,000 policy. Alex never informed him, nor did the other attorney, that there was an umbrella policy. When you're rich, it's good to have backup policies so that people can't get to your property. If you're sued, like the boat accident, you need to have multiple policies to cover any excess judgments that come so they can't get to you. So he had an umbrella policy. So the umbrella policy paid $3.8 million. So $4.3 million to settle this case. But Michael doesn't know about this umbrella policy. And he testified he never got any money, not a dime, from Alec Murdaugh. What he and his brother eventually did was they hired another attorney to go after Alex and the insurance company and the other lawyer, and eventually they did recover some money. But that's another story, right? So a very sympathetic witness, but jury still hasn't heard this information yet. Then we get a gentleman named Carson. who works for the Attorney General's office in the General Accounting Office, and he's a forensic accountant. And he takes a look at where did the money go that Alex was putting in the Forge, that fake Forge account that he set up at Bank of America. Where was this money going? So the Ferris funds that I just talked about a few minutes ago, the $782,000, where did that money go? So the 192, the 375, the 225, he said they were all deposited in March and April of 2021. And from that, after that deposit, the money went into Alex's personal checking account. Now this guy doesn't follow the money forever and ever and ever down the line. He's just, once it gets into Alex's personal account, we know that now it's being used for Alex's personal use, and that's as far as he takes it. So he said that from December of 2011 to 2021, all of the money that was being deposited in these Forge accounts would be transferred to other, $12,000 were taken out in cash. Oh, this is out of the Gloria Satterfield settlement, the $4.3 million that's put into the Forge account. That's, supposed to be set up as an annuity, this fake Forge account. Alex takes a draw of $12,000 cash, and the rest goes to pay off Alex's bank loans with Palmetto State Bank. Yeah, and this guy testified that everything that Alex deposited into those fake Forge accounts went for his personal use, either to pay back loans or whatever. So the last witness to testify was Tom Darnell, a fingerprint examiner. Now the jury's coming in. Jury comes in. They get to hear from a fingerprint examiner about, were there any fingerprints on any of these weapons? And here's the thing. The weapons were tested for fingerprints. The shell casings, everything that was recovered was tested. All the ballistic stuff was tested for fingerprints. Now, there were prints on some of this stuff, but they didn't have enough ridge detail that could assist the examiner with matching it to a known sample. So basically, they couldn't figure out anything. No fingerprints. And that includes Paul's cell phone. So when this guy, Tom, gets all this stuff and he's looking for fingerprints, he's also swabbing these, the weapons and, what was that? Oh, it's the dog. Paul Selby swabbed all that for DNA and blood, and that was sent to another lab, and he doesn't have those results, but no fingerprints. That's the bottom line. So, but, then we hear from various witnesses who, like 3-4 different people who had gone out, investigators that were assisting with this investigation, and they had gone out, because the first thing that Alex does when the first responder gets to this crime scene is talk about the boat crash, and that he thinks somebody's after Paul because of the boat crash. So there were 6 people in this boat at the time of the crash. Paul and 5 other people. Mallory Beach, who was ejected from the boat and passed away. So that leaves 4 other people. So each one of these investigators got up to testify that they went to these 4 individuals' homes and they took buccal swabs out of their mouths for DNA, so they'd have a known sample of DNA to match later on to any DNA collected from the crime scenes to see if any of these boat crash victims perhaps could be the killer. So, isn't that interesting? Now, is there any more? Is there any more? No. So, one of the news outlets that I like to watch, because there's hundreds of news outlets covering this trial, is I like FITS News. It's FITS News. They're based out of South Carolina. It's a local, very local, And you know, this is their swan song. And the guy on Friday put out a video where he gave us a little tour of what's going on at this little tiny courthouse in Walterboro, South Carolina. He said that you could see like where all the media were parked and camped out, and several news outlets had like campers and fancy trucks that they were living out of, and he had one himself. Then he showed the court TV set up and all the, he said there's cables everywhere. You have to watch where you walk. Then he walked over to the area where, by this building where the whole parking lot just for the state attorneys, the witnesses, that kind of thing. And they have a whole camper truck, the state attorney's office right there, where they're working out of that truck and meeting with witnesses and stuff. And it was quite interesting. Then they have a whole nother building that they, I guess, was rented or something, but it's set up as a media center. And they're outside of the courthouse. There's a big screen where people can just watch the trial outside. So it's quite the circus going on there. And I don't want to leave today without thanking President Biden, because apparently he gave an order on Wednesday to shoot down a Chinese balloon that was flying across the country, and spy balloon. And the military in their infinite was, he told the military, you know, you decide when you want to do this, when it's safest to do this. And they decided, hey, you know, let's wait till it gets to South Carolina and we'll shoot it down over the Murdaugh trial. Not really. They waited till it got off the coast of South Carolina, and then they shot it down. But I just thought that was really funny. You know, where is the most media at in the world right now? Alex Murdaugh's trial. That's where we're going to shoot this balloon. We're going to wait till it gets past the Alex Murdaugh trial. Then we're going to shoot it down when it gets over the ocean. Yeah. I don't know. That means nothing. I just an observation. Okay. Oh, I know I'm being silly, but, you know, that's my prerogative. So, if I feel better later on this afternoon, I'll work on this some more. I will have another show for you. I'm going to go back to bed, and I've already mailed out my eBay stuff for today. I'm going back to bed, and I'm going to listen to the trial, take my notes, and I will have another show for you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Oh, before we go, I always forget my crime calendar. Okay. Let's just take a look. We're going to talk about Sixth Amendment, and then I'm going to go back to bed, right? All right. I have like this NyQuil hangover. Okay. The Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution promises those accused of a crime of a fair and speedy trial, overseen by a judge and decided by an impartial jury. Sure. However, today only 6% of state criminal cases go to trial. 6%. So 94% of cases are settled. Down from the still low 25 to 33% in the 1960s. It's even rarer for federal cases to go to trial. Only 3% go before a judge and jury. Regardless of whether defendants are guilty or innocent, may take a plea deal with a lighter sentence rather than risking, many take a plea deal with a lighter sentence rather than risking the heavier sentence that might receive if convicted at trial. After spending months or years in jail pre-trial, many accused of a crime are hesitant to risk a trial. The National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers calls this the trial penalty. Now, how does this relate to the Alex Murdaugh case? It does, because the rumor mill, I can't confirm that this is true, but the rumor mill was, prior to this trial, Alex was offered a deal of 30 years for everything. Now, that includes the murders and the 99 financial charges he has. They're not all financial. Like, he's been charged in the case where he hired somebody to try to kill him. His fake suicide, whatever that was supposed to be, you know, he's been charged. His friend that he hired was charged. So he has 99 other charges. He was offered 30 years, and he said, nope, going to trial. I cannot say, right? If you ask me for a verdict right now, I would be undecided. I haven't heard enough evidence to support that Alex Murdaugh was the killer of these two individuals. So that's why I'm anxiously listening to all this testimony. And I'm trying to distinguish what the jury is hearing and what they're not hearing yet. Or whether they will ever hear it. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you think the jury should hear about these financial crimes. I'm curious what your thoughts are. All right. I will see you tomorrow in Crafting a Crime Daily. Have a wonderful Monday, everybody. Bye.